record.
Oh, I can't hear you now.
So,
That's
okay, is
weird.
that better?
Oh, there you go. Yep.
I accidentally hit mute.
Okay.
All right. Hi, Ashley. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Sharon.
If you don't mind starting by introducing yourself and telling us what years you played at Norwich and what position.
Sure. My name's Ashley Lally, and I played at Norwich from 2005 to 2009. And I was number 13 outside center all 4 years.
Oh, wow, all 4 years. Look at that. And did you know you were going to play rugby when you went to Norwich, or how did you start playing rugby?
I wasn't certain I was going to play. When I decided to go to Norwich, I was looking at the website. I was interested in playing a sport. I'd always played sports.
Oh man.
And I realized through the website, but I did see that there was rugby, and I Googled it. And when I Googled it, it talked about how the rules for men's and women's rugby were the same. And so immediately I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. So
Hmm.
I had went to Norwich with rugby in mind and interested in playing it. But then, the first few days at Norwich are just so hectic and there's so much
Right.
going on. I'd kind of put it out of my mind a little bit. Plus, I was starting to be introduced to other things like the Ranger team and
Mm-hmm.
mountain cold weather rescue. So then
Yep.
I was like, oh, maybe I'll do something more military. Really, we were at uniform issue, and I was getting my boots, and Charity Lake, who is like 6'1", and she's a big friendly giant.
Oh, is
And she looked
she?
at me.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, she's amazing. Yeah. So she was like, I was intimidated, upperclassmen. Um,
Oh, right.
and playing it, and I had told her like, I saw that there was a team and I was interested. And she out the first practice, and then I showed up. I dragged some Rook sisters with me. And yeah, the rest is
Awesome.
history.
That is awesome. I love it. I love when those stories, when you hear those, because it's always, oh, somebody saw me, an upperclassman, and they said, you're going to play rugby. That's awesome.
Mhm. Yeah.
So what are I'm not looking at you. I'm trying to figure out why my connection's so terrible. But it's just because I'm on the Cape. So what are some of your favorite memories from playing rugby at Norwich?
Oh boy. There's a lot.
That's okay.
Some that stick are when it's my sophomore year, sixth season, and it was the first time we made it to nationals. So this
Oh,
was the Northeast, I think it was Northeastern playoffs or New England playoffs. I can't remember which round it was.
okay.
I think it might have been the Northeastern playoffs. The muddy game, it was a rainy game, it was cold. And that feeling of like advancing and kind of all your hard work for the whole season and the buildup of the year before and
Mm,
continues that we had played the whole year, and to just top it off like that was really incredible.
I bet it was.
Other
I
than
can't
that,
even
I just think
imagine.
about, yeah, it felt great. And then um other than that, I just think a lot about practices and walking to the rugby pitch with the girls and fooling around a little bit before practice starts. And then um we had a really good routine with practice. We took it seriously, so it was fun to work really hard together and push each other, get dinner together afterwards. I think September in Vermont is the most beautiful month anywhere on earth.
Absolutely.
So it was fun. I just, those little days in between the big memories are what I think about a lot too.
Yeah. You're lucky you remember most of them. That's great. That's great. So, um, you said something that made me think, and it was goof around a little before practice started. So you didn't goof around the entire practice period? I mean, it wasn't just one big happy go punch each other in the face and drink some beers
I
while you're
mean, it was
practicing and dip and
fun.
smoke a cigarette?
Oh no, definitely no beers. No, none of that. no, it was very regimented. It was very disciplined. And like we had like a weekly routine for what our practice week looked like. So Monday would always be we would review video, we would run 2 miles just to kind of like, break up the soreness. Tuesdays we would break up into backs and forwards. Wednesdays uh, we call them fitness days, and that was like really, really difficult stopping running the whole time. Thursday
Hmm.
would come together, and then Friday, just a little bit of practice.
Wow, that
So we
sounds
had a pretty
very,
raw.
hmm. You know what? I'm gonna try one thing. I want to see if this works. I'm gonna get on my phone because my laptop is just being terrible.
The recording in progress.
So, Ashley, can you tell me maybe some of your favorite memories that you have from playing rugby at Norwich? And oh, by
Yeah.
the way, I'm going to keep my camera off because my connection's terrible.
Yeah, a few of the bigger events that stick out. The 2006 season when we made it to nationals the first time, and we had New England playoffs, and then we had Northeastern playoffs, and the game that we won to advance to nationals. It was muddy, it was wet, it was a little cold, but that's kind of our element. We played the best games when it was messy like that. And we played so well, and to top off kind of 2 years, 2 seasons of growth with making it to nationals was just an amazing feeling. Another memory that sticks out is when this is my senior year, and coach had set up a tournament in Montreal for us to play with the Montreal Irish. And I remember watching them play and being like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. They were much bigger than us, faster in some ways. We were really an athletic team and good, but these women just had years of experience on us. And I think in that tournament, we ended up having like 3 or 4 injuries. But it stands out because my roommate at the time, Amanda, she had gotten hit real hard on her eye and was bleeding really badly, and it definitely needed stitches. We went to the ER in Montreal and immediately were like, we could probably wait till we get back to Vermont. But we got back to the hospital or to the hotel, and Katie Hathaway's mom is a nurse, and so she actually stitched Amanda up in the hotel. Um, so that was a fun memory. It was kind of a rough start to the season, but a good reminder and a good experience for kind of to kick off the rest of the year. But other than the big tournaments, I really just think about walking to the rugby pitch with the girls for practice, crossing over the Dog River, playing on the beautiful rugby pitch all fall, goofing off before practice started. It was really just really fun memories to have them build together.
Okay, but goofing off before practice started. So what do you mean by that? Was practice all that very serious? You didn't goof off during practice?
No, our practice was pretty where we went 90 minutes with you couldn't not be running the whole time. So whether you're doing backs or forwards or coming together as a team, we had to be moving for that whole time. And it was just a hard, full fitness day. And then we'd kind of ramp down for the rest of the week. And then we'd get dinner together after practice. But yeah, it by my freshman year, the team, to me anyway, already felt um, really professional, and there was uh, regimented process to our practices and the growth that we were having and kind of where we wanted to get to and what we had to do to get there.
Wow. Okay, so I just put my video on because I want you to know that that's totally different from when I played. When I played, it was a much more I don't know, I guess I mean we were serious when we played, but it was a much more party atmosphere. We
Mhm.
20 I mean we hung out with the guys club, we drank all the time, we played, we drank. Do you guys have drink ups?
No, so some of the upperclassmen went to a few. They would travel to like other college campuses to go. So like I remember
No drink ups?
I think they went to Castleton College one weekend. Um, we played Dartmouth one time and we stayed and hung out at their clubhouse after the game for a little bit. Um, and we would get together to shoot the boot and to do jacket nights and stuff like that. And we would hang out on the weekends together, but no, I mean, there were pieces of that rugby culture, but especially when I was there from 2005 to 2009, the team was really on an upward trajectory and we were taking that very seriously. And also, there was a element of culture in the team too, of like representing the Corps of Cadets or representing the rugby team in the Corps and in academics, and just being kind of a leader for the university and giving the women's rugby team a really good reputation. So there was some of that cultural stuff going on as well. But I also think part of that was just the time, early 2000s, they were definitely trying to weed out any like hazing, and it was a dry campus and they took that seriously. So I think it was kind of a combination of factors, but yeah, we had goals in mind and we were, I think, dedicated and working towards those.
Wow. Okay. And then the recording was pretty terrible earlier, but we touched on this for a minute. Let's go back to this. You were there as a freshman and it was a club. Can you talk about the transition to a varsity sport?
Yeah, so we were a club team my freshman and sophomore years. It was fall of 2007. We became a varsity team. And things that changed with that, one was our conference changed. So we had gotten used to playing, UVM and trying to think of that Vermont team that's in Southern Vermont, but they were pretty good. Like smaller D3 level teams, and then moving to varsity kind of pushed us up into a different level. The other big change I noticed with moving to varsity was the uniforms. I think actually all 4 years I was at Norwich, I had a different uniform. So we started kind of experimenting with different types, like tighter, so they wouldn't get pulled and ripped off as much. So that was definitely a noticeable change. Instead of like scrounging for practice jerseys every year, we were getting new ones. And then the travel was easier too. I'm trying to remember, I think there was an issue my freshman or sophomore year for some tournament we were trying to get to and travel fell through. I can't quite remember, but after we became varsity, there were no issues. They flew us to Florida for nationals. So I think that kind of helped too. The other thing was following NCAA rules, because we didn't have to do that before. So we started to have to do random drug testing and also eligibility for the players. So that got kind of tricky with some of the older girls who hadn't graduated yet, because with NCAA rules, you only have 5 years of eligibility, not more than that. And so we had some old girls who could no longer play like full time for us and had to kind of move into more of a coaching role. So that was another change I noticed with the transition to varsity.
Absolutely fascinating. It is fascinating. So even when you were still a club, your freshman and sophomore year, you had some transportation provided to you from the school?
We did, yeah. And it was always like talk to us about a point of pride too, in terms of the support that the university gave to the team, because technically they didn't have to provide any of that to us. And I think that's also why we took like representing the rugby team seriously. We didn't want to get in any trouble with the school or anything like that, because they were supporting us without like legally having to support us. And especially my freshman and sophomore year, I saw that as a really great move by the school to support us despite being a club sport.
Do you have any idea what percent of your teen years was core versus civilians?
Um, that's a good question. I would say probably a healthy like 3/4, if not a little bit higher than that, were core.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Hmm.
Okay. My freshman year, my roommate and I, my best friend Kate Trant, we were the only cadets.
Oh wow.
And we
Yeah,
only played
definitely
because
leaned heavy in the core.
that's amazing. That's awesome.
Hmm.
I mean it doesn't matter. Obviously it doesn't matter, but it's just interesting how things change over the
Yeah.
years. It's very interesting. Um, and Coach Hall, you would say he was instrumental in making that change from the club party atmosphere to the professional sport atmosphere.
I I assume so. I don't really know because by the time I got there as a freshman, it was his second year. So he had already had a year to kind of make a transition and change the culture of the team a little bit. By the time I was there as a freshman, it felt pretty smooth, but I also know I didn't have all of that historical knowledge. And I remember some girls being upset. I know what I remember people being upset about had more to do with where they played, because they had, been in positions for 3 years, kind of where they thought they should be. And then Coach Hall came in and kind of moved people around based on more of like the team dynamic and where he thought everyone should be. So
Sure.
I remember there being, I think a few people quit the team because of that
Oh wow.
my freshman year. Yeah. So that's kind of where I remember the tension being. It had more to do with like the playing than the culture, but I just didn't have as much exposure to what that transition looked like, what it was before to like all I knew was Coach Hall, really the whole time I was there. So
Interesting. Cool. So, are there any lessons that you learned playing rugby that you've carried with you, or any person in particular that you've held, I mean, carried on through life with, like leaned on for memories, etc.?
oh yeah, I mean, obviously the people, like I think about when I was in Afghanistan and was able to reconnect with a lot of the rugby girls because they were downrange at the same time as me. So we were on
Oh, that's
the
very
same,
cool.
yeah, the same time zone. We could chat a lot more, talk to some on the phone. So that was really great. Reconnected with people when our deployments overlapped. I actually ended up meeting one of my really good friends in Afghanistan. She played rugby not for Norwich, she played for West Point. But we had been at the same tournaments together. I actually remembered her from watching her in a tournament. We became really, really close friends downrange. So kind of had that rugby connection. My roommate, who she started to play rugby, I think our junior and senior year. I live in Alaska now because I came out to visit her and fell in love with it. And I lived with her for 3 months out here when I was first getting my feet on the ground. My great friend, who she was a senior my freshman year, but she's Rosemary Kogan. I try to see her at least a few times a year. She's been up here to visit me in Alaska, I think, at least 4 times.
That's so
Uh,
cool.
yeah, so the friendships and the relationships, I mean, are unmatched for sure. Um, but the other piece I think that stuck with me, I used to say this all the time, that playing rugby at Norwich prepared me for being an Army officer a lot more than like the Army culture at Norwich. That had its piece for sure, and it was an important piece. But the lessons from rugby and the team, and especially being a captain, like that's kind of the stuff that made me want to be a good leader. And that's kind of where it all started for me.
That's awesome. That's so heartwarming just hearing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, what about wow. So I'm almost in tears. That's so great.
Yeah,
No
and
matter
I think a big part of it my freshman year, I remember, especially your freshman year in the Corps of Cadets, you're kind of scared. You don't know what's going
oh
on.
hell yeah.
You're quiet, right? You're kind of just trying to take everything in. And Stephanie Hurley, at the end of every practice, would spend time talking to us about the old girls and how we have a family with the team. And if anything happens on the hill, we can come to them. And it's not just the team that was there on the pitch at practice, it's this legacy that is decades long. And they really tried to like instill that in us as new players, and that was just a really great foundation for like the rest of my 4 years there.
That's awesome. That is so
Yeah.
awesome. That's exactly the same things we did when we were back there in 95,
Mhm.
94. Same exact things.
Great.
Because first year cadets or the freshmen would always be so nervous and, oh, you
Mhm.
might tell my upperclassmen, you might tell my cadre. No, no, I'm not going to tell
Yeah.
your cadre anything. Just shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, they snuck me out one weekend freshman year. That was fun. They actually ended up getting approval because they didn't want to get in trouble, but my
Yeah,
cadre let
sure.
me
You're
go.
just saying that
Yeah.
because we're recording.
No, they did. My cadre let me go. So it was fun.
That's very cool.
Yeah, but they took care of us for sure.
And your cadre, how was it back then playing on the rugby team? I know we had a really hard time. Our cadre gave a shit all the time. How was it for you?
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. I think it was a little more like jokey at first, a lot of lesbian jokes. The stuff I was more upset about was like I think we played Northeastern, we had a few hour drive down to Boston. We played on turf. It was cold. I got beat up. I had a bloody nose. I get back to campus and I'm just like exhausted and want to just go to bed. But they forced me to go to the regimental ball, and I really, really didn't want to. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, so that was kind of more where I would get frustrated. But I understood like I had to prioritize rugby as much as I could within the structures of being in the Corps of Cadets. So,
and you were a freshman and they made you go to regimental ball?
yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, got off the bus like in my bloody t-shirt. I'm exhausted. I'm all wet, frozen, and everyone's all like dressed up and ready to go. And they're like, Lally, you got 30 minutes. And I'm like, I'm not going. And they're like, yeah, you are. So,
Yeah.
but
Because we wouldn't have been there on time because we'd have still been at that drink up that team would have been sponsoring. And
yeah,
then we would have
exactly.
gotten into our own personal cars and taken a long time to get home, doing pit stops on the
Yeah.
side of the road. Yeah, so it was a little different back in the day.
Yeah, no, we just
Wow.
got on the bus, headed back home. We'd always sing Hooked on a Feeling. No, not Hooked on a Feeling. What song is it? Total Eclipse of the Heart was
Oh boy, okay.
our bus song. So yeah, we'd sing that on the way home and just get ready to get back to Norwich.
It's amazing how things change, but some things stay the same. So
Yeah.
huge shift in the team culture, but what I'm hearing from you that's remained the same no matter what is the friendships that last forever. And that is definitely true.
Yeah.
100%. It's been 30 years. I'd hate to say it. Is that right? Yeah, I think it's been 30 years for me since I played at Norwich. And oh my God, well, it can't be 30. No, it is because I'm coming up on my 30th. Wow. And I mean, I'm getting together with one of the girls this weekend to go deep sea fishing off the Cape. And then
Nice.
we're going to drive up together to reunion. So
Hmm.
they last forever.
They
And
do.
it's awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
No matter what year
I
you played, it seems to be the reoccurring theme.
Yeah, for sure. Like one of my professional mentors, Chantel Carter, she was a senior my freshman year. She was a civilian. Um, she's, like I said, a professional mentor to me. We connect regularly about work. And so even though a lot of my friends like happened early on, only had one season with them as a freshman, so I couldn't really be as involved socially as other
Right.
years. But even those friendships have been a constant. So yeah, it's incredible.
Excuse me. That's awesome. Makes me happy to hear that that's still there. And
Mhm.
I know I didn't prep you for this one, but what about the guys' team? Did you guys still interact a lot? It sounds like you weren't doing drink ups, so you didn't do drink ups together, but did you guys hang out on the weekends? Was there camaraderie there?
Yeah, I would say that there was. I think there was a healthy respect between the two teams. I feel like my freshman year maybe was the most where like I think before we became a more established, before we were varsity and as we were kind of on this upward trajectory, um, there was a little bit of like battle for field space and uniforms and stuff like that. But it was very quickly diminished as we proved ourselves very quickly. Um, and yeah, I would say we had very close relationships with the rugby team. I got a bunch of my male work buddies to play rugby. They ended up loving it too. I dated a guy that was on the male rugby team my senior year. So yeah, I would say probably more than any other sport at Norwich, we were a united front.
Good. Good, 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 good.
Mhm.
So in closing, is there any other favorite part of rugby you want to talk about or anything additional you want to add?
Um, no, just that I'm so grateful to have had that experience. I'm so grateful to Charity Lake for asking me to play. I'm not
That's
sure
awesome.
I would have taken the initiative, even though I was interested. I think I was just too intimidated by Rook Week to have requested on my own to go check
Sure.
it out.
I
So to
actually
make that,
interview her on Monday, so I'm gonna talk to her
oh,
about that.
awesome. Yeah, I'm sure she got a lot of people to play actually. Um, and as we've talked about the relationships that remain through today, I wouldn't live in Alaska if it wasn't for Amanda. Um, it's just, you know, when you're living it and you hear these things and people talk about the sisterhood and, you know, it sounds nice. But then to be 15 years removed from that, and to see it in your real life every day, like when I'm stressed about work and I can call Telly, or when Rose and I connect on the East Coast, or whether she comes to Alaska, we just make a point to spend time together. Um, just the trajectory that my life has had because of rugby is still influential, and that's pretty incredible.
It is incredible, and I promise you those friendships will last another 15 years. So good for you. Good on you guys. Makes me very
Thanks.
happy to hear. Well, thank you, Ashley, so very much for taking
Yeah,
time to talk to me today. Thank you for dealing with my little hiccups with Wi-Fi.
it's all good. I'm
Um,
used to it, honestly. Our internet up here is pretty poor.
and I will see you in September. I'll find
Yeah,
you.
yeah, definitely.
Sounds good. Thanks so
See
much.
you at the barbecue for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, take care. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Sharon. Bye.
Bye-bye.